He absolutely was the best there was. Bill Wallace, Joe Louis, no slouch himself. These guys are amazing. You will see some amazing action here. Let's get to it. We'll go up to our ring announcer, Les Kynette.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, kickboxing fans, we are set to go. Another bout of rock and sock. Introducing, fighting out of the blue corner and wearing the blue trunks. His current age, 46, weighed in this afternoon at 199 pounds. A professional kickboxing record, 18 wins, 3 losses, no draws, and of those big 18 wins, 16 via the knockout route. He is the first heavyweight world champion from Carolina Beach, North Carolina, the Golden Boy, Joey Louis. Joe Louis. And to my right, fighting out of the red corner, wearing the gray pants, age 45, weighed in this afternoon at 166 pounds. A professional kickboxing record, 23 wins, no losses, no draws, and of those 23 victories, 13 via the knockout route. He is the first middleweight world champion from Memphis, Tennessee, now fighting out of Los Angeles, California, Bill Superfoot Wallace. Bill Wallace. 7 rounds. This is speed versus power. Your referee, Mr. Joe Mastis.
8 minimum kicks. We're just break tonight. When I say break, break clean. If anything besides the fight, just feet touch the ground, then stop the attack. Let's have a good, clean fight. Good luck to both of you gentlemen.
As we look at our physical stats there, this is a very special fight that was approved by the Nevada State Boxing Commission here. Joe Louis with a 33-pound weight advantage over Bill Wallace is really the major factor here. Wallace with a lot of speed, he has the kicking advantage, but Louis is so powerful.
And here we go, round number 1. Wallace puts out the glove to touch, and Louis ain't having it. Now, these two guys are best of friends, but I'll tell you what, it don't count inside these ropes. Bill Wallace in the gray, Joe Louis in the blue. Again, Wallace snaps that kick out there. You will not see a faster kicker anywhere, at least not that I've seen anywhere. Louis, of course, a very powerful man. And the hook kick over the top. The 33 pounds here, John, would almost dictate that Bill Wallace would be moving around a lot more than he is, but Wallace is the stalker at this moment in time.
Louis wants to take a little time here to get a little feel for the timing. He wants to get just a sense of how fast that front leg is going to come in. He knows that's what's going to be the #1 tool. He'd like to get out here and get Bill Wallace to throw a lot of those kicks in the first round so he can kind of get a feel of it.
And all you folks at home who are in the 35 to 45 and on up range, I got to tell you something. I don't know about you, but it tickles me to death to see guys like this, 45 and 46 years old, in this kind of shape, doing this kind of work. Tells you that there is everything is not a young man's game, or a young woman's game for that matter. Again, Wallace with a very fast front leg. They call it Superfoot because a long time ago, when he was fighting, he had knocked somebody out with a kick, and his manager at the time was Don Klein, went to the Lakers game and saw a sign that said Super Footlong Hot Dogs, and believe it or not, despite what you may have heard, folks, that's where the name came from. The legends are a lot better than the reality, the truth of it is.
Well, it's lucky for Wallace that he didn't decide to call him Superfoot Hot Dog.
A couple of good left hooks into the rib and a right hand into the forehead by Joe Louis, as Louis showing some power and Wallace in the corner there. And you wonder if that's the right place for Bill to be. Straight left jab by Wallace that lands the hook coming off of there. And as we come to the end of round 1, Joe Louis and Bill Wallace tapping hands. And you might be right, John. It might just be that Joe wanted to see what this is going to be like. I think Bill probably showed him whatever speed there is there. As you look into the corner, Chuck Francis working with Bill Wallace there. What do you tell a Bill Wallace? Hey, Bill, here's what you're doing wrong. I mean, this is a guy who does seminars pretty much every week and shakes more hands than a presidential candidate.
All you do is ask him what he wants.
Yeah. Toss a little water, and there's Chuck Norris over in the corner. Maybe we can get him to come out and fight Wallace next, or one of these guys anyway. Chuck, of course, has never been a kickboxer, but he was a great point fighter and has gone on to be a very, very successful actor.
You know, Chuck Norris and Joe Louis had some classic point bouts back in the middle 60s. They were really just the absolute epitome of the sport at that time. Joe Louis came along a little behind Norris, and then Wallace came along a little behind Louis, actually.
Yeah. And you look at these two guys as we get into round 2 of a scheduled 7 rounds here. Another thing that the conditioning of these guys and the talent, the ability of these guys, is it tells you that if you youngsters out there are willing to make the effort to learn this sport and keep up with your training, it's as good an exercise as any you'll find. This is what you're going to look like when you're 45 instead of what your dad probably looks like. And I say that with all modesty because I look like your dad probably, maybe even heavier.
You know, it's interesting to watch Louis now. Louis wanting to work inside and wanting to get the hands. He's got the stronger arms, stronger punches, but he's having a little problem dealing with that front leg, and that, as everybody always has. You know, Bill Wallace as a point fighter was so predictable. Everybody knew exactly what he was going to do. He was going to kick you in the face with his left leg, and he was going to maybe slap you with a left back fist with his front hand, and he was the #1 point fighter for about 4 years in a row doing just that.
Absolutely, and Wallace says, you know, he says, I love to kick people in the head, and Joe Louis likes to hit people in the head, and so that's what we're going to try to do. Really hasn't done much damage with that front leg, but he keeps Joe from doing what he wants to do, so in effect, it's really doing the job, John.
Well, Louis needs to be exercising his front hand a little bit more. He needs to be sticking that front leg out a little more convincingly. And nice round kick there.
That kick by Wallace faked the first, landed the second. That one landed and got Joe's attention. Wallace again carrying that left hand very low. And that front kick coming in there looked to be blocked. From this angle, it was hard to see because Lewis's back is directly to us.
Well, this was what Louis was talking about in the little profile piece that we saw, is that Wallace drops his hands a little bit when he throws his kicks. Louis would like to step in and land the right hand, but he's kind of dropping his hands as he moves across.
Lewis with a couple of shots into the ribs there as they clinch up. And again, Lewis looked like he was getting ready to throw something, and Wallace put that foot up there. Didn't hit him with it, but he made him deal with it. And as he just did there. And you have to deal with that foot, whether it hits you or not. You got to deal with it, and it stops your momentum. It stops what you're trying to do. As we're at the end of round number 2, and John, I guess we ought to ask you about the score here. How have you got it scored?
Well, I've got Wallace ahead after the first 2 rounds. He landed a couple of pretty strong kicks. He really was kind of controlling the pace, what it looks like controlling the pace and the tone of this fight so far, as we look into the corner there with Joe Louis. You know, Wallace has a tendency to throw that quick front leg single round kick, bam, one time, and then he'll come back occasionally, he'll throw it as a double, and a lot of guys try to lean out of that first kick and then come inside for the second, and there you see Joe Louis just ducked right into that, as so many people have before him. He just ran his forehead right into that left foot.
For those of you, few among you who may not be familiar with Wallace, the reason you see him only throwing his left foot is he cannot throw his right foot. He was doing judo some years ago and basically turned the ligaments in his knee into spaghetti. And he can only kick with his left leg. He uses the right leg. You'll see a brace on the leg if you look through the... sometimes when he bends his leg, you can see the brace through the pants. Wallace, this great of a fighter with only one leg to kick with.
Well, those of us who've been around a few years probably remember Louis now throws a good body shot and a couple of left hooks in there, but he needs to stay busier when he's on the ropes.
And again, these two guys, best of friends everywhere but inside of these ropes. And I can promise you this, Wallace is in there talking to him too. Wallace loves to talk to him. Wallace loves to talk to anybody. There's a left hook by Louis that lands. Another left hook by Louis lands. A couple shots in the ribs, no real damage, but they certainly landed. Wallace, the left foot, and he's blocked by Louis. Too quick. Looks like a snake flicking his tongue at you when Wallace does that.
It's so easy for him to do. It just comes up so effortless.
Yeah, and I never could do it. Could you? Well, of course
not like that. Not like that. And not with that leg. You know, I was going to say earlier, I'm one of the few people in history that saw Bill Wallace throw a right leg. He did that in his retirement fight.
Really?
10 or 12 years ago, yeah. And, well, it wasn't very impressive, and everybody kind of giggled. His opponent laughed, and he didn't do that anymore.
You know, you got to wonder a little bit about why these guys are doing this. Wallace, of course, you know, is doing it because he loves this sport and he wants to help it. Joe Louis is making the point he told us earlier, John, that he just wants to prove what a 45, 46-year-old man can be and do. Also wants to be a role model. And I think either one of these guys, you know, if my kids were ever to grow up like either one of these guys, I'd consider I did a good job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They've both been tremendous examples. And both of them go around the country and give seminars all over the country. So I'm sure that the promotional value is something that they're interested in. It's nice to get out there in front of people again.
I'm not sure what caused that look on Wallace's face, but he just rolled his eyes and walked away like, why am I doing this?
You know, really, this has been Lewis's best round. He's landed some pretty strong punches and has managed to avoid being hit.
And that's the end of round number 3. Scheduled for 7 here as we look into the corner of Bill Wallace. And you know, Bill, with all the weight difference here, we're talking 33 different pounds. Bill trained down. Bill lost about 8 pounds for this fight in the process of training. He's cut about as well, cut up body-wise about as well, as lean as I've ever seen him be. There you can see in the dressing room of Daryl Hennigan, who is the FFKA championship. He will be involved with Dennis Alexia here to unify the heavyweight championship of the world. All of the bodies are sanctioning this particular fight, so whoever wins this fight between that man right there, Daryl Hennigan, and Dennis Alexia will be the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. That fight, of course, coming up after this one. But to round 4 now of a Schedule 7. Bill Wallace and Joe Lewis. Wallace in the gray, Lewis in the blue. Wallace, the very first heavyweight champion in this sport. He single-handedly moved this sport from being a point fighting kind of a thing. And Wallace with a lot of kicks that never landed, and Lewis says, let's go. And you know these guys are having fun. That's a good sidekick. Doesn't use it as much as he might, Joe Lewis, but when it lands, it hurts you, John.
He used to use it extremely effectively as a point fighter, more so than he does a kickboxer. But he's scored many, many points with that left leg sidekick, and he's landed it really effectively. He used to drop guys in point fighting to the body, and he was just really the most intimidating fighter maybe that the sport has ever seen.
Now, I know, John, you were an old-time point fighter. You ever hook up with either one of these guys?
I've fought Wallace sometime just at tournaments. Never fought Lewis, thank goodness. He was a heavyweight. I wasn't. And I was glad of it.
I guess the obvious question here, John, is, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot if I am, I apologize in advance. How'd you do?
Against Wallace?
Yeah.
Not good. I did like about most everybody else.
Well, the one time I got up there in the ring with him in an exhibition situation, I didn't do very well either, although I was just the referee, but we were having some fun, nevertheless.
Wallace was obviously the class of his time, and I felt good if I could score on him.
Yes.
Just like to keep it into single digits there, Bill.
Yeah. Interesting night, though, you know, with both Wallace and Lewis here, and, of course, Chuck Norris, another one of the all-time great point fighters, probably the 3 of them the most recognized names in this sport, still, after all these years.
We got Benny Urquidez here tonight, who's one of the all-time great kickboxing champions. Everybody's here.
And, of course, now, Benny has never really officially retired. Benny still wants to go one more time, maybe 2. And who knows, we may see Benny Urquidez up here next time.
It'll be a great show. There'll be a lot of people who love to see it.
Under 10 seconds left in round number 4. Bill Wallace in gray, Joe Lewis in the blue.
Fast front leg, a left round kick. He follows with a jab, then sticks it up there and sticks about 3 or 4 in a row over the top of the head. Lewis just folding up the arms, saying, "Okay, I've seen that. I'm not real impressed here, Bill," but he did land a couple of them in there.
Truthfully, Wallace has not been able to land that high kick as much as I thought he would. Joe Lewis very good at stopping it. Wallace certainly controls the pace and flow of the action. And Bill just looked over here as the round started, kind of rolled his eyes again. Good left hook in there by Joe Lewis, and as if they're going to step up the pace a little bit, Joe's starting to swing him. We are in round 5, scheduled for 7.
Lewis now picking up the action, working the body in there. You know, I think that he's trying to go in and see if he can take some of the steam out of Wallace by going in and throwing those hooks to the lower rib area.
And again, Wallace answering back, but quite frankly, if you're going to get in close quarters with Joe Louis, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get pushed around and come on the short end because Joe is a much stronger man. With 33 pounds, you would expect that he would be. Wallace, the faster man.
Well, fighters for about 20 years have been trying to get inside of that Wallace front leg, and nobody's had a lot of luck with it, so it's not easy. Wallace and Lewis both came in here just a couple of days ago, so they have not been training in this altitude, yet both of them appear to be in good shape here as we get into this 5th round.
Lewis moving in, faking the right, throwing the left, catching Wallace in the ribs there. Wallace trying to hold on until he can get some distance here. Underneath, there's a left hook to hit the jaw. The first punch was blocked. Lewis starting to throw some heavy stuff now.
Wallace doing a good job when they do get locked in there of tying up those arms. I'm sure that every one of those punches that Lewis throws, he feels he doesn't want to take any more of those than he has to.
And Wallace's wife, Susie, over here on the side, looking at us and beginning to wonder why is he doing this. A lot of people probably do. I think they're having fun up there.
They're having a good time. I tell you, this is something that all great athletes want to do. At some point, after they've not done it a while, they want to see if they can still do it. This is a test for them. It's a great opportunity for them.
Straight right hand by Lewis as the bell ends. What would you call that kick that Wallace landed there? Sort of a hook kick, I guess, but not exactly.
Well, yeah, it is a hook kick. I don't know what else you'd call it. He's his hook kick and round kick and side kick are what he does. That's what he lives off of.
And he lives very well off of them, too. At least he is tonight. As we are now into the getting ready for the 6th round of a scheduled 7-rounder.
In the last couple of rounds, actually, Lewis has done better. He's gotten inside and landed quite a few punches. There's a hook kick that lands up high on the head. That hurts because you catch it with the heel, that little bony part of your heel down there on the bottom of your foot. You kind of wrap that thing up against the side of your head there.
Yeah, it comes up around the temple area, and it will definitely rattle your cage. 45 years old, doesn't look much the worse for wear to me, does he to you?
No, he looks great. Don't tell him I said that, though.
I will not. No. Wallace is a guy that you got to bust his chops whenever you can. You got to tease him because he'll get to you unmercifully if you don't. Round 6, scheduled 7, and the hook kick from Wallace lands, and Joe says, "Okay, now." Wallace is clowning a little bit with him. And again, that high kick blocked by Joe Louis, but it comes at you fast.
Wallace throwing obviously a lot more kicking technique than Lewis. Lewis having landed quite effectively with his hands in the last couple of rounds. It's fairly close here, actually, as far as points scored, I think. I haven't really been scoring it as carefully, but it looks like a fairly close fight to me.
Well, either one of these guys got nothing to...
A little low kick there, and inadvertent low kick, and Lewis says, "Hey, just keep him up, babe."
Well, and perhaps at the age of 46 more so than ever, you don't want to get into that problem.
See Lewis now almost reverting to point fighting. He locked into a pretty deep stance and just threw a lunge punch with his right hand and scored to the body.
Right above our broadcast position, these two guys rolling on the ropes.
Break beam, gentlemen, break beam.
Lewis having a tough time getting his front leg in because Wallace is so quick with his front leg that when Lewis does move across there, it just kind of hangs up.
And again, a nice spin move by Wallace puts Lewis into the corner, and Lewis with his strength turns it back around as we are at the 10-second mark left in round 6. And another low kick there by Wallace as Lewis rushing in, didn't give him a chance to throw the kick. And as round 6 comes to an end, John, we are looking at Dennis Alexio. Alexio, of course, the heavyweight champion in kick, ISKA. Daryl Hennigan, his opponent, FFKA. And these two will go for the undisputed heavyweight championship here in just moments. One more round left in the Wallace-Lewis fight.
This next one should be a banger. I tell you, Dennis Alexio has had a lot of reservations about this fight. He is very nervous about fighting Darrell Hennigan. Darrell Hennigan with a lot of reach on him. He moves well. He kicks well. He's not afraid to fight. And it's been a while since Dennis Alexio has really had a challenge. He's fought guys that really wanted his caliber, and Darrell Hennigan should be somebody that can stay in there with him.
Well, you know, the truth is there aren't a whole lot of guys that are his caliber when you come right down to it. Darrell Hennigan is, and we will see that later. Right now, the 7th and final round, Bill Wallace, Joe Louis. And Louis in with 3 unanswered jabs right into the ribs, and Wallace holds on. I guess the trick is to stay as close to Wallace so he can't throw those kicks. I just don't know how you do it. Hook kick to the head by Wallace.
Good jab then by Wallace as Louis moves across. You know, Louis having to be so conscious of that front leg that sometimes that left hand will just slide right in.
Well, you get so caught up dealing with that lead kick, you don't even have time to worry about a punch.
Wallace complaining about his own low shot there. He got whacked in the low. Both of them traded out, I think, in this fight on low blows.
And again, that hook kick there, landing more on the shoulder than anything, as Louis has Wallace pinned on the ropes and is scoring in there. Wallace covering up well, takes one up around the ear from Louis. Less than a minute left in this fight. Ooh. And there's a good side kick that caught Louis coming in right smack in the jaw, and that shook him. Louis, with that strength, can lean on Wallace and get his head clear. And Wallace there.
He never misses an opportunity, does
Never,
he?
never.
Never misses a chance.
But he won't wear a clown nose. Tried to get him to wear one once, he won't do it. But he will clown. Louis a little bit upset with himself. He got caught with that kick as Wallace snuck it in on him. We're under 5 seconds in this fight. That's it. Wallace closing with a flurry into the belly. And again, there you have it. Bill Wallace and Joe Louis, 2 of the great legends in this sport. Again, Joe Louis, the man who started this sport. Bill Wallace. Wallace is trying to pick up Joe Louis and can't really do it. There are 33 pounds of weight between these guys, and the crowd is on its feet in appreciation of these 2 great athletes at the ages of 45 and 46 who have come in here and put on a show that anybody would envy. Now look here as Joe gets in there. He's up underneath that kick. He throws the hook. And you almost wonder if that shouldn't have been a knockdown. Certainly the punch is what knocked him down. But Wallace got his foot caught up on Lewis's shoulder there. And I can tell you this. I hope at home, folks, that you enjoyed this fight. I can tell you the 2 people on earth who enjoyed this fight more than anybody else were Bill Wallace and Joe Louis. These guys have been wanting to do this, and they had a lot of fun doing it. I can promise you John Worley is making his way to the ring as we speak. And let's show you one more replay here in this final round between Bill Wallace and Joe Louis. And again, you can see John Worley in the ring there getting the fighters together. He's going to talk to both of them. Here's Wallace in the gray, that head kick. And that hook kick into the jaw, and Louis mad at himself because he got caught with it. But a nice hook kick with Wallace. He throws that leg up there and he pivots it off the knee. The thigh really doesn't move that much, but he flips that leg around off of the knee pivot, and he's very, very good at that. Let's go up to the ring now. Well, we're having a little difficulty here. We're just about to go up to the ring and talk to both Joe Louis and Bill Wallace.
Fighters up here. Ring.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have your decision. George Thatch scores the bout 67-67 even. Judge Buton scores the bout 67-66 in favor of Wallace. Judge Miller scores the bout 67-67. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a draw. Superfoot Wallace and the Golden Boy, Joe Lewis, battling to a draw.
Let's go up to John Worley in the ring. As I don't think either one of these guys are going to be happy with this result. John, take it away.
Like the decision?
Yeah, well, we were holding back a little bit too much. We're sorry for that. But I think what we demonstrated here is that unlike ex-athletes, ex-heavyweights, and other sports, we proved that you could still stay in shape regardless of the fact that you're over 40 and regardless of the fact that you're over 45. Nolan Ryan, all right. George Foreman, all right, baby.
Bill, did you have fun?
We're old. But it's an absolute ball. I absolutely love it. Joe Lewis and I, he's still pretty. He's still pretty. He's got a hard head, and he hits awful hard, and I'm glad he's heavier than I am.
Okay, guys, it was a great show. I think people really enjoyed this. We're going to see a little muscle shot between these two guys.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it, Bill Wallace and Joe Lewis, and we hope you enjoyed it. Of course, we've got our main event coming right up, that between Darrell Hennigan and Dennis Alexio to unify the heavyweight championship. We had a chance to talk with Darrell Hennigan at the press conference earlier this week, and let's show you some of that.